People who have lost a loved one to suicide commonly experience feelings of grief, loss, regret, or anger. How do people find healing and hope after losing someone to suicide? And what role can faith communities play to offer support and hope? Coming up, one couple will share their story of healing and hope following their son's suicide. But first, it's important to know some facts about suicide. More than 36,000 people in the United States die by suicide every year. It is this country's 10th leading cause of death overall, and the 3rd leading cause of death for young people aged 15 to 24. There is no single cause of suicide, but there are common risk factors that we can all be aware of. These include previous suicide attempts, a history of depression or other mental illness, alcohol or drug abuse, family history of suicide or violence, physical illness or chronic pain. Sometimes, a suicidal person will show warning signs of their intention. These can include recent impulsiveness and taking unnecessary risks, threatening suicide, or expressing a strong wish to die, giving away prized possessions, sudden purchase of a firearm, obtaining other means of killing oneself, such as poisons or medications. Unfortunately, warning signs can sometimes go unrecognized or are barely noticeable. Other times, even with warning signs present, it isn't possible to prevent the suicide of a loved one determined to end their own life. Rex and Connie Kennemar lost their son Todd to suicide in 2005 when he was just 25 years old.
Todd grew up as a stellar musician. It was his language. Music was his voice. We had our little discussions when he decided, after years of studying the violin, that he really would rather play guitar. So we got over that hump, but that was just who he was. And because Rex and I are both musicians, it just was such an easy way to come together as a family.
He was in Seattle with a band. He got very anxious and depressed, and I went to see him and helped him find a doctor so he could get on antidepressants. And after 2 months, we met him in Colorado for Thanksgiving, and he started to seem manic to us. And after he went home, he took himself off his antidepressants. At that point, he had a psychotic break and was diagnosed.
Todd had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and we knew nothing. We had no background in mental illness of any kind. We didn't have enough background even to know that suicide might be an option.
Todd was hospitalized for a week, and we went up to pick him up and bring him home here to San Diego for a month, but San Diego was no longer home to him. And he was an adult, able to make his own decision, and so he went back to Seattle when he really wasn't functional, and he was just trying to get adjusted to his medicine. And then he got a job, and then he got a second job, which meant his sleep was erratic. And he also got an apartment by himself, which was a dangerous thing. And obviously it turned out to be the worst choice.
That morning I talked to him, and his thoughts were getting less and less clear. And I said to him, go to work, pick up your airplane tickets for Colorado. And I had to kind of talk him through and ask him, what 3 things did I just say to you? So he answered me back. And then basically we hung up, and that was the last time that we talked. And we heard later in the afternoon, one of his friends called us, and he'd hung himself in his apartment.
Todd had gotten to a place where he felt like a nuisance to everyone, a bother, his friends, his family. And so the thought of going to Colorado and even facing family again, as loving as they are, I think was just too much. Of course, we were trying to reason how this happened when he couldn't really reason himself.
Todd wasn't thinking. He was not rational. I often thought afterwards, Todd, what were you thinking? And that was a problem. He wasn't. He was in a world in his mind that did not make sense to him.
Rex and Connie have a loving faith community that grieved with them in the immediate aftermath of their son's suicide.
Our faith community was on our doorstep as soon as it happened. And just one after another came in just to give us a hug and
To be with us.
console us. And they knew there weren't really words, and that was one of the most encouraging things we would hear from someone is, there are no words.
I don't know what to say.
So, but they were here for us.
Yes.
Today, Rex and Connie feel strongly that faith communities need to be caring and responsive to the needs of persons living with a mental illness and their families, not just in the aftermath of a suicide. They see a larger role for faith communities in reducing the stigma of mental illness and in being present to family members who need support.
A faith community of any persuasion needs to be a safe place. This needs to be the place you feel safe to come just as you are, not all dressed up as if everything's perfect. You should be able to come and be acknowledged and to be invited in. And that is probably one of our greatest desires and passion, is that we can help faith communities become better equipped to engage and to draw in these marginalized people that really don't feel very safe. A mom whose son is dealing with a mental illness of any sort, they don't just jump into a prayer group of other women because they don't want their story to be known. So that's where the stigma is really difficult, when people don't feel safe enough to say, this is what's going on in my house. This is what happened last night with my adult child. And there is such support, there's such strength when a group of broken people, of broken mothers, can come together and say, oh, I know where you live. I've been there. That's happened in my house.
Another key to healing for Rex and Connie has been using their gifts as writers and musicians to share their story with others.
Oh Lord, I'm just a vessel, just a simple jar of clay, not porcelain, not china, not adorned in any way.
I think that being able to express ourselves in the arts in different ways that we do has been so redemptive. There has been such I see just a stream of redemption as I look at what I'm writing now and the way it is influencing people. I see that it's a healing, and it's a healing that I get to pass on, and that Rex gets to pass on as we share with others, especially those that are just new to this strange community of brokenness, especially in regard to suicide. I loved my son. Write it on my gravestone. Say it in my eulogy. Speak it simply. Tell it truly. I loved my son. Don't regale songs I've sung, or tales I've told, or carols I've crafted. Only this: I loved my son. The air is sweet, but silent now. Just breathe a blessing. Proclaim the prayer that is eternal and needs no amen. Ponder the holy pause, the Selah, the legacy that lives on for time and eternity. I loved my son.
In educating our faith communities about suicide, we can all work together to identify persons at risk and to create caring congregations for persons affected by mental illness.